is, I think, 6:30 in the morning on January 6th, and I'm going to start my Betsy-Tacy reread, Rainey. I'm so excited. Um, oh, I can't wait, and I just wanted to read the first sentence and look at how charming these illustrations are. It says, "It was difficult later to think of a time when Betsy and Tacy had not been friends. Hill Street came to regard them almost as one person. Betsy's brown braids went with Tacy's red curls, Betsy's plump legs with Tacy's spindly ones, to school and from school, up hill and down, on errands and in play." So that when Tacy had mumps and Betsy was obliged to make her journeys alone, saucy boys teased her, "Where's the cheese apple pie? Where's your mush milk?" as though she didn't feel lonesome enough already. And Hill Street knew when Sunday came, even without listening to the rolling bells, for Betsy Ray and Tacy Kelly, whose parents attended different churches, set off down Hill Street separately, looking uncomfortable and strange. It's so lovely whenever I come back to Deep Valley. Oh, it's going to be a glorious time of reading now. So, Rainey, one of my absolute favorite things about these books is Betsy's family, and particularly Betsy's father. So she comes downstairs. She's all excited for her birthday party, and her father says, "Dear me," said her father, shaking his head when he saw her. "Betsy can't have a party. She's sick. Look how red her cheeks are. Look at those bumps that have come out on her head." Betsy's father loved to joke. Of course, there were bumps on her head because the curls hadn't been unwrapped. They weren't unwrapped for hours, not until almost time for the party. Betsy's hair didn't take kindly to curls. I just love how her father teases her. It's just so endearing. Hi, Rainey. So I have finished the first 5 chapters of Betsy-Tacy, and I just there couldn't be a better book for me to be reading right now. I feel like it's some of the advice you hear for avoiding reading slumps is revisiting a favorite book, and I think just anytime I have a reading slump, I should just pick up a Betsy-Tacy. Not that I'm in a reading slump right now, but it's just, I started reading it and I just thought there's nothing else I would rather be doing right now than reading Betsy-Tacy. It's wonderful. A couple things I noticed. One is when Betsy and Tacy go up on the hill and for the first time, not the big hill because that's later on, but when they go up to have a picnic, how it says they're picking thorn apples. And so I thought, what are thorn apples? And I thought they might be like crab apples. So I Googled it, and apparently they're very poisonous. So I love how it says, like, we're going to pick these and eat them. And they pick them, and then their mothers call them back down the hill. So I couldn't tell if it was the game was picking them and they knew not to eat them, or they were maybe going to eat them and then they got sidetracked because their mothers called them in for supper. I don't think I'd ever noticed that before. That it was thorn apples because I didn't know the name of that plant. So yeah, it's not a kind of apple. It's a poisonous nightshade plant, and yeah, so it would have been very bad if they'd eaten them. Also, I love how their imagination is woven so seamlessly into this first book. It talks about how um, Betsy sees a cloud that looks like a feather and she reaches up and then floats into the sky. And it doesn't say anything about them imagining it. And so I love that it shows kind of how vivid your imagination is when you're this little, because they're 5 when they're first friends, right before Betsy's 5th birthday. And so it seems so real to you. And then it's really special to capture that because when you're an adult, your imagination it's never the same. You enjoy whimsical stories, but to actually play imaginatively is really just kind of impossible when you're an adult. Um, so I love that bit. Also, I was wondering, Rainey, what you think of Maud Hart Lovelace's writing style because it's not this super like flowery, it's not showy, it's very simple, but there's something about it that's really appealing. And a bit, it reminds me of Laura Ingalls Wilder's writing style. So I'm curious if there's another author you find her similar to, and kind of if you agree with me about her writing style, maybe different adjectives you'd use to describe her writing style, because, like I said, it is very simple. So I'm really excited to continue on with this. Um, and also, I thought it would be cool if I put in some pictures of the different houses. So Betsy's house, which they're not, the houses are not open right now in 2020. I think they'll reopen once everything is blown over. But I really want to visit someday. It's in Mankato, Minnesota. And it just looks so charming. The only thing that I am bummed about is I don't think the house that Betsy moves into when she's older and when the gang hangs out all together in high school, I don't think you can visit that house. I don't know. I would like to do some research to see kind of if that house is still up or what. And then Tibbs' house, or I meant then across the street is Tacy's house. And Tacy's house is also, it's, set up so you can visit it. And oh, I would just love to do so. But then they talk about Tib's house before Tib has moved there. They see the chocolate colored house and they're so excited to see it. I don't like the sound of a chocolate colored house. So I'll put in a picture now. I haven't looked at what Tib's house actually looks like in a while. But so far, I don't know. It seems kind of like a drab color for an entire house. I feel like chocolate brown seems more an accent color than an entire house color. I'm pretty sure if my memory strikes me correctly that it's still chocolate colored, like they've preserved it, the color that it would have been when Tib was there. So yes, I think those are all the thoughts that I had, and I'll let you know if I have any other ones.
Okay, Kate, I am finally sitting down to read Betsy-Tacy. I'm so excited. This is just going to be the coziest of cozies. Even watching your clip before this, when you started reading the first paragraph of this book, I was just like, oh, I'm so excited. So I will I will check in with you in a little bit whenever I continue to read. So, one thing that I don't remember from the first time I read this book is that Tacy is actually short for Anastasia, and her name is really Anna Anastasia. That's quite a name. I can see why she went with Tacy. Betsy was given beautiful presents at her 5th birthday party. Besides the little glass pitcher, she got colored cups and saucers, a small silk handkerchief embroidered with forget-me-nots, pencils and puzzles and balls. But the nicest present she received was not the usual kind of present. It was the present of a friend. It was Tacy. So cute. Look at them. So cute. Actually, she looks kind of mad. But so cute. I'm so excited that we are reading this. It's just so lovely. I finished the first 5 chapters as well, and I just am in love with this writing style. Honestly, it is very simplistic, but it is so imaginative. Just Maud Hart Lovelace captures the mind of a child so well. And having read the entire series before, now that I go back to the first book, it's just so wonderful to see Betsy's first story and just her fanciful imagination and just how far she takes things. And yeah, I really liked our first glimpses of Mr. Ray, who it just continues to be just the most delightful father throughout the series. Um, Julia and Katie, who are the nemesis to Betsy and Tacy. It's just so nice to see how it all started and to know that these little things that happened in the first book, we see the first day of school in all the subsequent books. We see a birthday in all the subsequent books. We end up seeing Christmas in the mall. It's just a nice little motif or whatever you want to call it throughout the series that just adds so much joy and comfort to the reading experience. So yes, I am really loving this, and I am excited to continue on with this book and the rest of the series. All right, I'm going to keep reading. I'll talk to you soon.
So I'm still reading Betsy-Tacy. So there's this section later on in Betsy-Tacy, and I've realized one of the things that I love about Maud Hart Lovelace's writing is she has this sort of sense of the magic of ordinary days, this sort of rosy glow. I love this section that says, "The lilac bush stood by that door. It didn't seem to be awake. The snow which had melted yesterday had frozen in the night, and it hadn't come unfrozen yet. Everything in Hill Street seemed to be waiting for the sun. The trees and houses waited in a dim gray light. Behind the white house which stood on the big hill, the sky was colored pink. Betsy walked over to Tacy's house and looked at the upstairs windows. Tacy must have known that Betsy would come over. After a while she came out of the house. She too had gotten up without waking a soul. She had put on everything warm, the way she knew her mamma would want her to. Her coat and hood and overshoe and mittens. She even had her scarf tied around her neck. And something really sad has just happened. So I just love this beautiful section then when Betsy and Tacy really bond. She and Betsy looked at each other and then they started walking. "What shall we do?" asked Tacy. "Let's climb a tree," said Betsy. It wasn't the time of year for climbing trees, but Betsy and Tacy were great tree climbers, so they climbed a tree. Oh, I just love this. And then Betsy tells this really sweet story, and it's just, oh, it's just so enchanting. I really like how you're already seeing Betsy's love of storytelling, even in this first book, even when she's just 5 years old. You can tell she has a real passion for storytelling, and it's wonderful foreshadowing of things to come. It's so cute how the girls sell colored sand and they each get a nickel when they sell it to this lady in town. And Tacy suggests we could go to Mrs. Chubbuck's. She runs the candy store. "No," said Betsy, "you only need pennies to buy candy. These are nickels. We can buy something more important than candy." She thought and she thought. "Do you know what I think we'd better buy?" she asked after she had thought. "What?" asked Tacy. "The chocolate-colored house." It's so cute that she thinks you can buy a house with a nickel. It's so sweet how it ends with Betsy and Tacy meeting Tib for the first time. After a silent moment, they went slowly on toward the bench on the hill. "We'll have lots of fun," said Betsy. "You and me and Tacy. Lots of things will happen." And so they did. The end. My heart is overflowing with warmth after revisiting Betsy-Tacy. It always lives up to my expectations of it. And it's so lovely to be reading. So, Rainey, I hope that your reread of Betsy-Tacy lived up to your expectations, and that it's just been a really nice, cozy moment in the midst of this January for you. So I cannot wait. Tomorrow I will be picking up Betsy-Tacy and Tib. And this is the one I think I don't remember as much of. Betsy and Tacy go over the big hill and Betsy and Tacy go downtown, I remember, but not as much Betsy-Tacy and Tib. I do remember one instance when they're being like very naughty all together in Betsy-Tacy and Tib. So we shall see and can't wait.
Ooh, Kate. I know we said we didn't remember much about Betsy-Tacy, and Tib, but I do remember this chapter, the house in Tib's basement, and it was my favorite chapter in this whole book. I'm so excited to read it. They supposedly built this little house in Tib's basement. That's a pretty good looking house for a basement construction job by 8-year-olds. But hey, I like it. They did a good job. So I just finished Betsy-Tacy and Tib, and it's funny how we both said that we couldn't remember what Betsy-Tacy and Tib was about. But then whenever I started getting into it, I remembered all these funny little scenes of childhood that I just loved, and they were almost kind of reminiscent of my own childhood. Like, there's the part in here where they make an everything pudding, and I remember going out with my cousins into my grandparents' backyard and making nature stew, and just taking like all the things out of the backyard and making a stew out of it, and that's basically what they do except for in the kitchen. and um, and the house that they made in Tib's basement, that was so fun. And I can just imagine being a little kid pretending to live in a log cabin in their own little space. And yeah, this was just really a charming addition to the series. And it's funny that we didn't really remember that this was the book that it all happens in. I will say, as far as it having some kind of overarching plot or something that kind of ties it all together, this one maybe was a little bit lacking in that area. Not that Betsy and Tacy did necessarily. Well, yes, because it talked about Betsy and Tacy becoming friends, but in this one, we already see Betsy, Tacy, and Tib being friends. So it's more just like vignettes of their lives as friends, which is really super cute. But there's really, I feel like maybe there's nothing that ties it in all together and makes you remember it as a specific book. So maybe that's why we didn't remember it that well. But yeah, I just really was charmed by all the little vignettes of things that they did, and there was still some harder things that the girls had to think about. They they got in trouble at one point, which we didn't really see ever in the first book, but they did something really super wrong that their parents were not happy about. And I also thought that it was interesting, and Kate, you can probably talk about this more as a parent yourself, but I really liked how the mothers all kind of supported each other in their disappointment over what the girls did, and how they basically didn't blame Mrs. Ray for what they did just because she was the one whose house they were all in at the time. And yeah, I feel like in modern day, parents probably would have freaked out and gotten mad at the parents for letting their kids do the things that they did. And with this one, it was nice to see all the mothers coming together and deciding what punishment to give all three of the girls. So yeah, that was cute. And it's funny that when you look at it from an adult perspective, you maybe think about what the parents are thinking a little bit more than what the kids are thinking. I really enjoyed this installment, and I am ready and excited to keep going. All right. Yeah, I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Kate, talk to you soon. Bye.
I've started Betsy-Tacy and Tib, Rainey, and I'm already just soaking in this quote. Betsy and Tacy didn't mind waiting today. It was June, and the world smelled of roses. The sunshine was like powdered gold over the grassy hillside. I just finished the chapter on the Flying Lady, and I loved it so much. They go to a fair and see this exhibit where this woman is in this really dark tent, and you see her fly, and then they're heartbroken when they find out from Tib's father, who went to see the show later on, and he told her that the lady did not, in fact, fly. And so they recreated it here. One of the things I find especially charming about Maud Hart Lovelace's writing is how she has this rhythm to it. So, they here's Tacy got scared. She clutched the plank and cried, "Stop, stop, I'm falling." But the way that she ends her chapters or her paragraphs after that show, Betsy and Tacy and Tib stopped trying to fly. They never tried to fly again. Something about it just seems really poetic, pretty sing-songy. So, Rainey, I am halfway through now with Betsy-Tacy and Tib and loving it so much. I'm just finding this is just like the highlight of my reading this month. And a couple things I found that were interesting. Firstly, it says that, Tib's family has moved from Milwaukee. And I was thinking, well, because I'm not from this part of the country, so I thought, is it like an hour's drive? Is that how close it is? Even though they're in different states, I thought they were maybe, one's in Wisconsin, one's in Minnesota. I thought that maybe they were like close to the border, but I looked it up and it's over a 5-hour drive in a car. So I can only imagine like they would have to travel by train. And then when they moved, like a lot moved by horse and carriage, or was it moved by train? I don't know. So it was genuinely, that's a good distance. Um, and then I find it interesting too, when they go over to Tib's house and they make a playhouse in the basement out of all of the wood that her father has, because Tib's father is an architect. I was curious about what his occupation was. I had forgotten that he was an architect because we know that Tib is more well to do than the other girls, than Betsy and Tacy. And also, we hear that Tib's house contains the only furnace in Deep Valley. None of the other houses have furnaces. So it really is a kind of luxurious type house. Um, but it talks about how they have a newspaper mailed from Milwaukee and they read the funnies, or the comics from that. And Buster Brown, Alphonse, Gaston, and Katzenjammer kids. So I'm going to insert some pictures here in the side. Hopefully, everything will go. And you could pause maybe, and maybe I could even include a link if you wanted to look. But Buster Brown, he's evil. He's so mean in this one in particular. So it was really amusing to me to get to look at these and see the same comics that they would have looked at. And the illustration style does not look the same as like Garfield nowadays, or even Peanuts. Peanuts is not that old. Or, oh, what's the one? Dagwood, who's married to Blondie. And obviously, for better or for worse, those are all a lot more recent. So it was interesting to me to see they definitely look distinctly different. And with the Katzenjammer kids, I thought it was interesting that there is a lot of German kind of the what do I want to say? Like how you would pronounce English with a German accent. It's written in that way. And there is a very high German population in Milwaukee. I even saw in some of my research, there's a whole book called German Milwaukee, just on the history of German culture in Milwaukee, which is really interesting. So I think that's a neat element that is put into this story. We get to see Tib's German heritage, and how you kind of see it coming in there a little bit. And then later on in the later books, you definitely see more of it. So it's neat to kind of get that little piece of the culture in there. I also like how you see Betsy-Tacy and Tib's three distinct personalities. So, there's Betsy, who's very kind of like dreamy and whimsical and loves to see the kind of the beauty in the everyday, and loves coziness, and is very social, very extroverted. And then Tacy, who's more soft spoken and shy, but she's very loyal to her friends. And then Tib, who's very plain spoken. And they kind of just are like, yep, that was Tib. That's how Tib talked. Like at one point when they're waiting to see the flying lady, I love how Betsy keeps like nudging Tib's side to say like, when are we going in? But she doesn't want to be rude and ask Tib's mom, just straight up when they're going in. And so then when she nudges Tib's side, Tib says, "Betsy, why are you pushing me?" So just really, straightforward. And just makes me think kind of a more like, I feel like in the Myers-Briggs, like it would definitely be more head that she would think with than heart. So I'm curious, Rainey, who you identify maybe the most with out of the three girls. I think I identify with Betsy the most because I am definitely not, I wouldn't consider myself an extrovert. Um, but there are certain people that energize me. But then there are definitely a lot of people that kind of drain me. And it's not that I necessarily don't enjoy their company. It just takes more work for me to socialize. So I am, I'd say though, because of the just loving stories so much, and being, I really was like, especially in the high school years, you see with Betsy, kind of like very romantic about everything and kind of making big plans and organizing things is fun for her. And I do love to like make big plans. And how I do that now is with my booktube channel. So yes, I'm curious who you identify the most with, Rainey. And I look forward to continuing on with the second half of this wonderful, wonderful book.
I wonder what it will be like to be grown up, she said. I don't think it will be as nice as being children, said Tib. Neither do I, said Tacy. You don't want to be grown up, do you, Betsy? At least not right away. Betsy sat still for a long moment and thought. She thought about the fun it was being a child. She thought about the Hill Street Hill and their bench. She thought about the big hill and the ravine and the secret lane. She looked up into the green shade of the oak tree and thought about the backyard maple. No, she answered slowly. I don't want to be grown up yet, but I want to be just a little older. You're 9 already, said Tacy. Next year, said Tib, we'll all be 10. Betsy jumped up joyfully. That's what I'd like to be. 10. You have 2 numbers in your age when you are 10. It's the beginning of growing up to get 2 numbers in your age. Tacy and Tib jumped up too, and they started through the vacant lot. But what will we do when we are 10? Asked Tib as they climbed Hill Street Hill. I suppose we'll be going to balls, said Betsy. I'm planning to have a pale pink satin ball gown. I'll have a blue one, said Tacy. Mine will have a long train, said Betsy. I'll carry a big feather fan, said Tacy. But we won't be going to balls when we are only 10 years old, said Tib. Tib always said things like that, but Betsy and Tacy liked her just the same. We won't be going to balls maybe, said Betsy, but we'll have lots of fun, you and me and Tacy. And so they did.
I will be signing off here for the first of the Rainey and Kate Betsy-Tacy vlogs. I just finished Betsy-Tacy and Tib, and I read that last passage to you. It's just so sweet. So I've had a relaxing book bath and finished Betsy-Tacy, then in bed, and it's lovely. And it's funny because I'm realizing this one is Rainey, you said that, it doesn't really have an overarching plot, and it doesn't. It's fairly low key. And so it's definitely not my favorite out of the 4, but it's, one of my absolute favorite series, so I still enjoyed it so much. So that's the nice thing about having a series that you love so much, is even the books that aren't necessarily your favorite, you still really, really enjoy. So I am really excited to continue on with this reading experience. And the next reading vlog will be on Rainey's channel, and TBD when that's up. It depends on like our reading speed and everything. So thank you for watching and have a great day, and I'll be back for another video soon.